We are live.
All right, all right.
Shout out to Most Def for that. All right, E, what's happening, brother? Welcome back.
Welcome back and good morning, family. Welcome to the Money, Sex, Gen X podcast, episode number 4. Let's talk about sex. It's me, your host with the most, the man with the plan, the guy that made him cry, Mr. Eric McLoyd. And I am not alone. I am here with my co-captain, my co-host, Big Stu. What's going on, Big Stu?
Hey, what's happening, E, man? Glad to be here for another week. Money, Sex,
man.
Gen X.
No doubt. I'm glad to be here, too. How's your week been going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Busy, man. Busy, man. I never thought I'd be this busy when I had to be at home, but I think it's a good thing. So it's been good. Very productive, man. How about you? How's your week been?
Same here, man. Just hard at work. Definitely didn't expect to be indoors this long, but, making it do what it do and trying to maintain. So I'm all good. I'm all good.
Yeah, here we got another 30 days stay-at-home order.
Yes.
Extended through May 30th.
Yeah, we got at least another 30 days, unfortunately. At least. Yeah, that's just the 30 days we know about. So,
well, yeah. I got inside scoop that we will be that there is definitely another 30 days coming after.
After May?
After May, we are not getting off until at least June 30th.
Wow.
That's my inside connects. There's no way that the city or the state could announce a 2-month stay-at-home order without inciting some sort of panic and riot.
Okay.
So they're piecemealing our stay-at-home order. But I was just asking you, had you seen the video footage from last night with all of these young people here in Chicago partying?
No, I did not see that. I was a little bit shocked. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, I am shocked, but what would I have done if I was their age? Would I have stayed in the house like a good little boy, or I don't know. So I don't want to cast judgment, but yeah, it was just shocking. I haven't seen the video yet, but I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's got a lot of people up in arms about it, man. It's got a lot of people up in arms. I wondered if it was the epitome of the divide, generational divide. Young people and old people. All the old people at home will not leave the house unless necessary. And it's literally all of these young people, like, not my words, their words, literally saying, fuck the virus. We out here in these streets.
Scary stuff. Very scary. Yeah, I mean, is it mostly the older people that are complaining?
Yeah, it looks like it was mostly literally all of these young. I'm sorry, it looks like it was mostly the adults of the world that were like, look at these fools, they're gonna die. Yeah. But they weren't practicing social distancing. There was a lot of people in this apartment house or whatever. A lot. They were drinking, they were smoking, they were dancing. Some people had on masks. Most of the people didn't. I found it highly entertaining, to say the least. I was torn between, YOLO and recklessness, civil recklessness. I was torn between the two.
Yeah, YOLO and NOLO. YOLO versus NOLO. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation, man. Everybody out there, if you're younger, we always say, we're not casting any judgment on you. We just want everybody to be safe and be around. When everybody can go back outside, we want everybody to be here so that they can do so. But, ultimately, unfortunately, people are going to do what they want to do. And you know what? That ties into our topic for today. Let's talk about sex, because
Let's talk about sex, baby.
number one thing I want to get into with you today is, when you were younger, what were your views about sex, and how have they possibly changed over the years? Did they change?
Oh, tough subject, man. I don't know why it's such a taboo subject. We don't talk about it a lot, particularly out in the open. I'm a late bloomer, bro. I'm classic Gen Xer. I was 18 before I broke my virginity.
Okay.
It did not happen the way that I imagined that it would. It came with a lot of pressure from the guys in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, my views on have changed over the years, of course, but I still hold on to a lot of old school traditions and traditional values around sex and responsible sex, being responsible.
Okay. Now, I did a little bit of, I like to come with some numbers, right? So I did a little bit of digging. And one thing that I saw as a recurring theme is, according to the media and supposed people that they poll, Generation X is the most promiscuous of all the other groups, definitely outpacing millennials when it comes to promiscuity. Also, baby boomers, from what I understand. And I thought that was interesting. And I think, from what I'm understanding, not only were we the most promiscuous when we were younger, but even currently, as I understand it. And we've definitely, according to the data, have had more partners and have had sex more often. And I thought about this. I thought about, we always talk about hip hop. So I think back to a couple of songs that I remember. I used to be still am big Tribe Called Quest fan. They had this song called Hot Sex on a Platter.
Hot Sex on a Platter,
Remember that? Hot Sex on a Platter, boom, boom. Then we had Flex, Time to Have Sex by Mad Cobra. Shout out to him. We had Pink, Cookies in a Plastic Bag. Remember that by LL?
Wow.
And then we had the obvious one. We had Salt and Pepper. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. Talk about you and
me. Yeah.
So we had those. I had to kind of think about it, but in the mix of all the other hip hop culture that we were in, we definitely had these conversations weaved in there a little bit about, as far as music, about sex as we were coming up.
Yeah, and OPP,
Oh man, I forgot about that. OPP, Other People's Property, Naughty by Nature.
Naughty by Nature. Going back to last week's episode when we looked at school days, the butt.
Oh yeah, but
So you're right. Sex was an important, act and conversation that we definitely addressed in hip hop. My mom sat down and had an official talk with me. I remember, her having condoms and banana at the kitchen table. This is how you do it. Like, get the air out, make, now you do it. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. I mean, we was about that. We was about getting peace, man. Definitely. It was for, a lot of masculinity around that, man. Getting some ass, man, for sure.
Yeah, it was definitely something that was top of mind for everybody. I went back and thought about what were my actual views about sex. I don't know if I had necessarily a viewpoint, but now looking back, I feel like it was more of a sport.
Damn.
At the time, it was like it was an activity. I mean, obviously it's an activity, but it was just like the casualness of it. was kind of sporting. I would
Well,
say.
are you talking about the sport of how many, like how many bodies you could catch, like catching bodies, like how many numbers, the numbers, or the sport of performance with the one you were with?
Yeah, a little bit of both, Scott. The number and also the performance, but also kind of the casualness of it. It's like when you play sports, you could be on the court with somebody and you all playing the game, but you're not really cool with that person. You know what I mean? Think about this. So we got this The Last Dance that's coming out about the Bulls, their last seasons or whatever. This first two, I watched the first two, but this season they're gonna really talk about Dennis Rodman, I heard. And I've read several times that he was saying that him and Michael Jordan had zero relationship off the court.
That's right. Him, Michael, and Scotty. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, no, they didn't rock at all. So relaying it back, it's like back then I feel like you could have sex with someone, but there was no real relationship there. It was just something that was done, and then you keep it moving.
I remember a time in college. So mind you, I lost my virginity in the spring of '89. That was my graduating year and of high school. And then I think, going off to college, definitely culture shock, seeing all of those women in one place. It was just like, what is happening, right? Like, I probably was the classic goofy freshman trying to talk to everything that passed. But I remember either somebody, I think an older cat told me, it was like, look, you got to chill out, bro. Like, you'll fare better by just chilling. Just chill, man. Don't try to talk to every girl. Don't try to pull on every girl's elbow or arm or.
Oh, you were doing that?
I'm sure, man. I'm sure. I got to college and thought, yeah. Okay. But it didn't help my game. I think what helped was really just like kind of falling back and just being cool and almost to a point of acting like they didn't exist. Like, they ain't that important. And then that's when, I had a few more experiences in college. But I remember trying to have some numbers, but that didn't work out. It became, I fell into quite the opposite of what you're talking about, man. Let me get to know them. Let me be the guy that's not just trying to bag bodies out here.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So my numbers were, I think, compared to a lot of my college buddies, and I'm not gonna say any names, you know who you are. My numbers were low, brother. I got low numbers out here. Okay. Low.
Wow.
Compared to.
So maybe compared to these other Gen Xers that they're talking about out here who were promiscuous. So when I think of somebody being promiscuous, I don't think about it in like the final act only necessarily. I think about everything leading up to it, the kissing, the fondling, whatever, all of it, just being active. Were you active and just not, the final stage didn't happen, but you were out there active, or how did that look?
Quality over quantity every time, dog. You know what I mean? For me. So I probably could have been, but I wasn't here for it. Like, I wasn't, like, I'm so, like, I know I'm the guy. Like, I go around a lot of my college folks now, and I'm not the awkward one in the room that's like, oh, I bagged her. And nope. I don't have any of those. I have none of those stories. None of them. I can go around my college people right now, and there ain't no stories about like 5 or 6 women in the room that I'd had intercourse with. I don't have that.
Okay.
My shit is low key, off the radar. It's hard to catch me up. I ain't so. Yeah. Nah, man, I wasn't that dude. I wasn't the dude for sport, man. Nah, man, I was chilling.
Good. So
now, I have my experiences now, but quality over quantity.
Okay. So my experience was where I was at the time when I was young, there was a lot of aggressive young ladies, girls, young ladies, for lack of a better word, but they were very aggressive. And I felt like they had more interest than I did probably initially. Not probably, they did. They were coming at me hard. Even some of them would go to my parents and be like, I want to talk to your son or whatever.
Really?
And yeah, I remember when I was playing basketball in middle school at practice, my dad, this is the first time my parents came to me with it. My dad came up to me, he was like, yo, homegirl, I'm not gonna say her name, she wants to talk to you. And I'm looking at him like, yo, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, I was embarrassed, I was frustrated, the whole thing, and I didn't know that the young lady liked me or whatever, but I was like, why is this man talking to me about this? He was like, yo, he was looking at me like, what you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, he's looking for an action plan. And I'm like, I'm totally not there yet. So I had a lot of that. So, and I don't know, I can't say she really, really liked me. I don't know what she was really trying to do, but it was definitely like, I felt a lot of pressure. Even in college, like I felt a lot, the women that I was around, the young ladies, they were very, very aggressive. Like they would initiate conversations. They would initiate these scenarios. And I kind of was late to kind of understanding like what was going on. They were flirting and I didn't even know that it was flirting. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. Like, and then I look back on it now, it's funny. But I was definitely under the gun. So, that was kind of my entry into it. And I definitely did view it as a very impersonal thing because there wasn't, like we talked about last week, there wasn't a lot of solid dialogue about what are you going to do with your life and should we
right.
Like, boom, boom, let's keep it moving, and that's kind of how I viewed it.
Now let's talk about this middle school basketball. Like what kind of dude were you? So when did you lose your virginity?
I was a late bloomer too. I was around 18. I was around 18. I may have even been 19. I was very late. Under pressure, but late to actually go through with the full act. I was doing all the stuff leading up to it, but I was a late bloomer for sure.
And I remember in middle school, man, I think the thing for us, the big score for us in middle school, if you can suck on some breasts, if you could if you can get your fingers involved,
yeah,
you were the man. Now I didn't even have a lot of those, maybe one or two of those in that middle school days. Like that was still like some far away stuff. You know what I mean? Like that was heavy duty stuff. Right. But were you aware? Did you have a girlfriend? Were you aware at that time, that middle school time? Were you aware of girls and the opportunity to, like, were you trying, or was it just like off the radar altogether?
Yeah, I was definitely aware. I was involved in everything but the final act. So but I wasn't the initiator. I was being placed into these scenarios where, the little girl was the one leading the show. It's like, yo, come over to my house. My parents are gone. I'm like, okay, and I get in there and it's boom, 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 boom. I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't devious enough to construct the scenarios that they were putting together for me. So yeah, I was involved in the whole nine of everything, but I guess they weren't trying to push me to go all the way until I got like 18, 19 or whatever. But all the other steps, yeah, for sure. So I was definitely aware. I was a quiet dude, very introverted. A lot of people liked me and stuff like that, but I was super quiet. And I'm like this to this day. Like, I'm not a shy person, but I enjoy my time alone. And I kind of recharge by myself. And I was definitely like that then as well. But I had my little crushes. So even though, these little girls were coming at me, I had my 2 or 3 that I really liked, out of that bunch. And so now here's the interesting thing about me. Once I hit 18 or 19, though,
Yeah.
It was off to the races.
Off to the races, right?
Like, wow, this dude is
the man.
And I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly what to say. It's like everything just connected at that point, and it was off to the race. I mean, I got a million stories on that, but
yeah,
it was late bloomer. But then I feel like I outpaced a lot of my peers once I did start. So.
Well, what was the like? I talked about the like I had in college, and then we talk. I guess you were 19. You're in college at that time.
Yeah.
Compared to the guys around you, what was the measuring stick? I'll talk about. I knew guys in college that, man, I got this one guy. I promise I will not say his name. He's still my Facebook friend, and if people who are watching know, they probably know who I'm talking about. But I mean, pretty boy. It was amazing how the women just fell at his feet. Like it was so amazing to me. Like I never experienced women like coming on to a guy, like women even saying to me, "You know him? Can you give him my number? I was just like, but this guy had, oh my God, it was unreal how many women this guy slept with, man. Unreal. I'm talking, if I'm saying 10 a week, I might be too low.
Yeah.
It's like, who didn't he screw on campus? You know what I mean? Or off campus? It's like, so what was the measuring stick in amongst your guys, your squad?
Well, the measuring stick, it wasn't. So in college, I lived in this like apartment building, and there was a bunch of people on the basketball team. Everybody in the dorm was a player. Every single person. So what the measuring stick was is how many girls you could bring into the dorm. Because that's something, even if you couldn't see what was going on behind closed doors, you saw when they brought them in. You saw when Eric brought in and whoever else. So that was what people were, I feel like, were gunning for, like that visual. And that's what I feel like the measuring stick was. And then the other thing is that I was out in South Carolina. Shout out to South Carolina at the time, and when I was a freshman, and there was a club. I tell people this all the time. There was a nightclub open every night of the week. And so we still had that old school measuring stick of how many numbers did you get in the club?
How many numbers? Yeah, how many numbers? I remember that. Oh, yeah, I remember how
that
many.
Was universal, right? So everybody, and the thing that's so funny about me is laid back as I was in high school, I was one of the more aggressive people in the club. It's so funny. I can't even believe it now as I'm older, but like I used to go hard in the club. Like I wasn't one of these guys that's like yanking on people, and I had interest also without me having to do that. But like I was definitely down to initiate. Like, yo, what's your name and all of that. I was like trying to get every number I could in that space during that 3 hours we're in the club, which is very comical to me still, but definitely at the end of the day, it's like, yo, dog, how many numbers did you get? And then you go to numbers.
Well, what was a hot night for you?
Hot night was if I walked out with 8 numbers, that was a good.
Woo! You was the man.
It did not happen every time. Now I'm not trying to say that.
Right.
If that happened, like I did.
See, I'm the opposite. Like probably my hottest night was like 3. Okay. 3 numbers. Like that was my hot night. Okay. But I was unaware, man. I didn't know shit, man. I'm from. And now I'm probably going into another area, but my parents divorced when I was a sophomore in high school. So, and then my dad had left mom for another woman.
Okay.
So I probably had this. I'm sure I had a whole nother dynamic about relationships and women going on. While now that I think about it, it was at the time when I really was on some. I ain't never getting married. I'm gonna have this red Corvette, living Lake Point Towers, and I'm just gonna be a player for the rest of my life. So, I wasn't at that time, high school, I had no concept of what to do.
Okay.
When it came to, being with a girl or sex or anything. Even though my mom had that conversation, I didn't know. I don't think I got it together until halfway through college. You know, when I started to understand a little bit more about women. And even today, I don't think I know a lot about women at all. At all. I don't think I know a lot about women. I just know what I know about my experiences.
Yeah, I probably don't know as much as I think I know. But
nah.
Women are definitely a mystery. Now, I want to ask you this, though. So I want to ask you two things. The first thing is, how big of and now if you're out there, if you like this conversation, you know, this is Money Sex Gen X episode 4. We're attempting to talk about sex in a non-vulgar way, but definitely get into it. You know, Scott and I really felt like this was a conversation that needed to be had. Yeah. But how much of a role did pornography play in your life at a young age, maybe before college? Did it play a role at all? Had you been exposed to that?
Yep, my dad had Hustler magazines under the bed. So I remember sneaking through those Playboy magazines. I remember if they were home and I found, and man, kids gonna snoop through your shit. You know what I mean? So I remember finding my dad's Playboy collection under the bed or in the closet. I think one of my early remembrances was like, first of all, I wish I was looking for more black women. It was a lot of white women in those magazines. Lots of white women. And I didn't really care for white women. And so when I would see, I don't know if it was Hustler or it was a Black Tail.
Yeah.
My dad had a couple of Black Tails. And that's when I started to like appreciate fine looking women, man. So that, and then the only other exposure I had to porn was, I think it was like on TV. They see the squiggly line down the middle.
Yeah.
Cinemax, Skinemax.
Yeah.
Cinemax After Dark.
Yeah. That was my first exposure to it.
That's all I had.
Yeah. That was something back then.
And I remember watching it. I remember, you know, getting an erection from it. You know what I mean? Like watching the act, a squiggly line down the screen, but I was like into it as much as I could watch before my parents got up or came in the room. I watched, you know.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I definitely got exposed to that at a pretty young age. I remember the first time me and these guys were out playing basketball. One of the homies said, "Come in the house real quick. I got to show y'all something." His mother was gone, and the next thing I know, boom. It's right there. And I remember I got an erection and I put the basketball in front of it. But I'm sitting there like, yo, this is crazy. Like, that was my first time seeing it. I'm like, wow.
Right.
That just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And so from there, it's like, you begin this exploration. But I wondered about that because I was wondering if like the millennials consume porn as much as we probably did, or people in our generation did coming up. I think I saw some stats that said that they don't, but I would wonder about that.
Shit, music is porn, man.
That's true. It's explicit. Yeah, they don't need a different media. They're doing it all at once.
But we do know, did you find any stats that shows like Pornhub is still like the #1 website in the world?
For sure.
In the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember I went on Pornhub a couple of times. I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't know it was like that easy to access. I was like, what? Just go to it? Like, no real filters? Like, anybody can get this? Like,
that's why so many little kids on there. All those
we both have children. Talk about little kids. I have a son. My son is 11. Do you have a daughter? Your daughter's a teenager. I have 2 teenage daughters. I count my girlfriend's daughter. She's 20. Do you talk to these kids? Do you talk to your kids about sex?
Yeah, we've had some brief conversations about it. So my son is 12. My daughter is going to be 17 in a few days.
Okay.
In June. So my daughter, I think she feels more comfortable having those conversations with her mother, which I'm cool with that. But I've said we've had a couple of little conversations where I try to weave in a few little things, but not explicitly. And then my son, I've started talking to him a little bit. But what I basically told him is don't let these little girls pressure you.
Yeah.
I sense that he's going through that too. Like they're pressuring him. And so I told him one day, particularly last summer, I'm like, yo, don't let these little girls pressure you. There's nothing wrong with liking a little girl and all that. But as far as the sexual piece, you got time for that.
Yeah.
Just try to wait.
I started talking to my son maybe a year and a half ago. So maybe as he was approaching 10 or around 10 or 11. Let me get this energy shot in real quick. What is this? This energy.
Like 5-hour energy?
Nah, this is a NutriBurst, bro.
Okay.
NutriBurst. I got me a little shot of that. So feel like you did something already. But I went hard with my son, bro. I went hard with my son. I was not gonna pull no punches. And when I say I went hard, I'm not gonna, I had to be reminded to use the correct anatomical words for his body parts, so penis and vagina.
Right.
But I also didn't hold no punches on calling it by its nicknames, right? And you're calling it, we talked. I know that he, I know when he got his first erection. I know that he, and it's easy for me to talk about him than it is to talk about myself. But and he's probably watching, so I probably shouldn't do that to him. But we had some very deep conversations about it. So we went in. My whole thing was to him is to always be a gentleman. Never be the jerk. No means no.
Definitely.
No means absolutely no. Like she says no, back away, dude. Do not. Yeah. I'm on that. No pressure.
Yeah.
Like she pretty much gotta come to you.
Right. Well, it's good you told me that.
Yep.
Especially nowadays. Yeah.
With my daughters, my two daughters, and of course I got twins too. They're 7 months, so I'm not talking about them. But my two teenage daughters, I knew when both of them first had sex.
Okay.
And I always ran it down to them. So they would try. I never wanted them to be caught up in the game. I never wanted them to be that chick that got their name run through the mud, or to be the one that they couldn't walk through the school with their heads held high, Right. So I've never sugarcoated a thing with them, like letting them know, like, dudes is trying to hit. I don't care what they say, they're trying to hit. And if you allow that, then let that be your choice and nothing else. But have respect for yourself. You're gonna do it. I know it was gonna happen, but I ain't hold no punches with that conversation at all.
Do you feel like that, looking back now, do you feel like that was helpful?
I did what I thought I should have done.
Okay.
I don't know. My girls have had both varying experiences. Some that I wish that they didn't have, but I'm glad that I know about it.
Right. It's good that they're willing to tell you about it too.
It's good that they're willing to tell me about it. So, I did something, man. I exposed them to some of the early music. I exposed both my daughters early to some of the music that I listened to in the 80s and 90s. So I let them hear Freaky Tales.
Good. Yeah.
I don't know if it was good or bad. I mean, but my point was just trying to expose them to what dudes be on, like
Right.
dudes that you want to avoid. Like, this is what dudes be on for real. Like, hear this. You need to hear how guys are talking about women, that they might not say this to your face, but this is the perspective of the essence of a guy when he's, you know, in front of a chick that he's trying to have sex with.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what he's saying. So hear this, so you know it. So that was my perspective. That was when it came to the kids. That's been my approach. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
I think that's a good approach. I mean, I'm definitely going to be having more conversations with my little man soon, but you know, I did kind of have that conversation with my daughter about, you know, don't be that chick and all of that stuff, right? And I think she kind of understood that through having conversations with her mother. Like, you know, if you do something, don't be the person that's out there like that. But yeah, I think it's I applaud you for having those conversations, and I would argue that that's the reason why they're okay with telling you as things happen. You know, like, Dad, this happened, because you were having those conversations, and it's not taboo. It's like, oh, I can't talk to my dad about it. Yeah, you can, because we've been talking about it the whole time.
Right.
I think that's a good strategy. I have to borrow some of that as far as letting my daughter possibly hear some things from the 80s and 90s that are kind of explicit. Because I feel like back then, even when they talked about it, it was still kind of done in an intelligent manner. Even if it was raunchy, there was still some intellect being used in the discussion.
How do you explain that? Dig into that. It was intellect and Freaky.
Yeah.
You remember Freaky Tales?
I do. Yeah, you know, it was so the way that it was approached, it wasn't like reckless. Like, when I remember listening to Freaky Tales, it was just raw. But I think Too Short was very clear about why he was doing the song and even like Ice-T. Remember Ice-T, some of his early stuff? I just feel like they had a bigger thought process than just, I'm trying to be nasty. I'm gonna put this nasty song together. I never felt like that. I felt like it was more educational, but also very raunchy and raw at the same time. That's how I feel. And then remember, we came up in that AIDS era. So especially when that started to pop off, there was a lot of like education being weaved in, you know, wear a condom, be careful, and all of that. And so, yeah, I think it was done a little bit differently. Now, I can't speak to all the music now because I'm not tapped into it, but I just know what I experienced.
Now, how did you feel? We're still talking about sex. How did you feel? Where were you, and how did you feel about when you heard Eazy-E had AIDS?
Man, I probably was like in late middle school. It blew my mind because that's when I really didn't know what AIDS was, but I had enough sense to know he was going to die. And so once I put all the pieces together, probably in like the next year, I was kind of horrified. I'm like, man, this guy is going to die over having sex, basically.
Now Eazy-E died in the 90s, though, so I don't think you were in middle school at the time.
When did let's look that up? When did what year did he die?
Yeah, check that out, because I believe it was definitely the 90s, because Bone Thugs and Harmony was out.
Oh, okay. It was later than I thought. He died in 95.
Yeah, so you were like 22.
So somebody got HIV back when we were still in like middle school, though? Who was the first case that you remember of somebody that had AIDS?
I thought it was maybe it was Easy. It was Easy for me.
He didn't live that long.
What was Magic? When did Magic come out?
Oh no, it was Magic. It was Magic. Hold on, it was Magic. Yeah, I think it was Magic Johnson.
But that was around the same time, wasn't it?
I'm trying to Google real quick. I feel like it was somebody that came around when I was young that had AIDS, like in the late 80s. Let me check real quick. What year did Magic?
This is the Money Sex Gen X podcast. We do research here. We pull statistics, real-time research, numbers. We're not guessing here. Money Sex Gen X with Eric McLoyd. and me, your man, Big Stu. Episode 4. Let's talk about sex. What you find with?
Actual facts. So Magic Johnson was 1991.
Dang. So that's the early. So he was
Yeah.
He was the first. He stunned the world. They wouldn't let him play. Nobody wanted to play with him, and his boy Isaiah Thomas didn't want to touch him. Didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, Eazy-E was the next big one for the HIV/AIDS.
Yeah.
I know with the Magic, I know. So 91, I was 20. And I was just like, damn. Because he was still married to Cookie.
Did it scare you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not so much because I felt like, I mean, it did, but it was like it's Magic. Like you knew these NBA players were sleeping around. Like you had all these ideas that they had lots of women. I just didn't know that was Magic. I didn't think Magic did that.
I did. I always saw Magic as a player. Like he just seemed like one of them smooth player type dudes. I always viewed him like that.
I always thought cats like that. I just thought they were above the temptation, above reproach. And I was like just more shocked that he had done that to himself, had all these women, and then was married. But yeah, man. So that and Easy, I think I was really, really definitely into condoms at the time. Like, gotta strap up, baby. Gotta strap up, and do not want to catch that luggage, man. Do not want to catch that luggage.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't as responsible as you were. And I really feel like I was very fortunate because, first of all, and I'm not blaming this on my parents, but they didn't have that conversation with me about how to strap up. Still knew that I should be.
Yeah.
But it just, my experiences, it just wasn't happening. And so it's bad.
Boy, that gives us a lot of content, man, because I although I did strap up, I took my shot a number of times. Definitely took my shot.
Yeah.
A number of times. And the ratio, the statistics. We ought to add statistics to this show, man, because I'm interested in like, the statistics behind your chances of catching an STI, STD, or something.
Yeah.
Having unprotected sex versus versus having protected sex, and even with all this going on with this COVID shit and all this, like statistically, what are your chances for getting caught up?
Yeah, I'm sure they were extremely high, man. I love to see that too. They were, and I'm telling you, I definitely, because I remember when I took my first AIDS test. You talk about somebody being scared.
Indeed.
Death. I'm talking about scared to my core.
Damn.
And I'm thinking, no, it's no way. Like, and then I went through the whole thing. Like, are you stupid? Like, why would you do this and this? Because at that point, I really, really understood the magnitude and the gravity of what I had been doing. I'm like, you got to be the dumbest dude in the world. Right? But thankfully, I did not have HIV/AIDS, none of that.
Right.
But man, after that, I definitely was more responsible because I'm like, nah.
After that, you weren't like, cool, I can keep going at it the way I'm going at it.
Nah. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't super Joe responsible, but I was more responsible, way more than I had been in the past, for sure.
That's good, brother. That's really good. That's really
and then
good.
As I got older, I got progressively more and more responsible, whatever. Now I want to get into this. This is something that I always wanted to talk about, so I'm glad we got this forum. So throughout my entire life, I've always heard the ladies talk about, and I'm talking about Black women primarily, but I'm sure all groups have these conversations about the man's package.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, the man's package and what can they do and this, that, and the other, the size and all of that, right?
Yeah.
And they really get deep into it to express, and I don't have a problem with it. You know, it is what it is. That's how they gauge whatever, right? Which is cool. But I've never heard, and this is the question I'm going to ask you: are all women created equal in terms of their package? Now, let me tell you why I'm asking you this. I had a conversation late last week with a millennial, and we kept talking about sex, and it got to the point where I had to make the point that just because a man inserts himself into a woman does not automatically mean, and he may even climax, it does not mean that it was necessarily good. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was enjoyable. You know, it could be moderately enjoyable. It doesn't mean he had the best time of his life. And she was very shocked about that because her assumption was that men, as long as they were doing the act, they were cool. And I had to explain to her that, in my opinion, that all women are definitely not created equal. Just like women have those conversations about men not being created equal, same thing on the women's side. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I've had some trash. And at the same, let me say, I'm probably sure there's some women that probably say that I'm trash, you know. But they're not all creative equally. I have. You would think that a man would never turn down an opportunity to sleep with a woman. I have completely been turned off by what I was about to get into for a number of reasons, and have talked my way out of a number of situations. My stomach hurt, my head hurt. I got something to do.
Same here.
No, they're not all creative. And I have, at the same time, I have had sex with women that I did not want to have sex with. And I have at one time at least faked an orgasm. Or just like came to like hurry it up and be over.
Oh, I can relate to that for sure.
But then I've had some amazing experiences where, like, shit, I did not mean to come that fast.
Right. Absolutely. No question about it.
I'm so sorry. I didn't.
No doubt.
You know, but
yeah.
No, women are not all packaged the same, and they can be trash. There's some women that can be definitely trash, bro.
You are rocking with the Money Sex Gen X podcast. This is episode 4.
Oh.
Talk about sex, baby.
We talking about it too, man. We talking
getting into
about
it, man. And you know what? There's some younger people that are watching this show on the replays and some up on the live. You know, I think it's good for women to know that, yeah, we do have preferences and we have different experiences when we are having sex. We're not just happy just to be having sex. And there is a thing that we probably all have where we feel like that woman, some women just have that thing. What do they call it? Je ne sais quoi, or whatever. They got it. You know what I mean? And that might vary for person to person, but my experience has been some women just have that thing. Remember that Lauryn Hill song, that thing? Some people just got it. And now I'm going to ask you something. The ones that you ended up being intimate with that had that thing, did you have that radar to be able to pick up on that ahead of time?
Just the hope. Just the hope. Just the hope. There are certain features on a woman that give me hope that they have that thing.
Okay.
But I couldn't really tell. It was just a hope. It was just a hope. Hey, listen, before we go any further, we can't see it this week because we're doing, but we have a lot of comments. Let me back up here. We have a lot of comments on this conversation starting. Actually doesn't start with, but I'm going to pick it up with Mike Tyler, who is Mike Tyler. Shout out to Mike Tyler.
Mike Tyler.
Mike Tyler been rocking with us since day one.
Yes, sir.
You are our number one fan, but Mike is going it's going down in here. So let me just pick it up. My man Craig Wallace is in here, and the question that I asked was, are all women packaged the same? He says, all no, all hell no. Mike Tyler says, y'all get into black feminism.
Wow.
Andrea has says nothing is packaged. It's all packaged the same. Craig has said he has had something that smelled bad, that was dry and too wide. Andrea says he could be too small for her, and that on this Sunday she is clutching her pearls.
Wow.
And so it's going down in the comment section here today.
I'm glad to see that. I was wondering why I can't really see it. Like you said, I can't see it on our screen this week because we kind of switched it up. I'm glad people are getting engaged. But yeah, man, that's my thing. I feel like we always hear that conversation from the women. They'll even say stuff like they look at our shoes or our hand size, and so I always wanted to talk to another man about that. Like, so me, I have this is going to sound crazy, but it is what it is. I'm telling the truth. I have a sixth sense for that.
For the it.
Yeah, I have a sixth sense for that, and I am 99% accurate.
Wow.
Okay.
That whether or not it's going to be trash or whether it's going to be
that thing, no question.
Wow.
I've always had it. So when you were talking about acting like your stomach hurt and all that, I was even aware of it when I was younger, but I'll be like, nah, my stomach hurt. I got to go to basketball practice or whatever. I don't want to do it, right? But I've always known that. Now that I'm older, I'm very aware of what that is. It's a sixth sense that I have. And I've talked to women that said the same thing. Like, they know which guys they encounter that's going to be a good partner. They know. Not all, but I've talked to some women that definitely had that sixth sense for themselves, and they're like, it's very accurate, and they don't entertain the rest of the guys. Like, they know which one's going to be that one. Everybody out there that's in the comments, do you have a sixth sense for which of your sexual partners are going to be the perfect match? The one that you really are going to be liking and enjoying. Do you have a sixth sense? Is that really a thing? Are we making this up? This is like a fairy tale that we got in our head. I think it's real.
Andrea is saying that's an assumption. She said, nope, she don't have anything. Mike Tyler says they do know. Women do know. But now you're making me think. She says, I don't know. I trust no man. So let me go back to you. So what was it? Is it the way the hips move? Is it the way they eat an apple? Is it the way they talk? The way they what is it? What's the secret? E?
It's not one thing. It's just a vibe that I pick up. Obviously, I would have to be attracted. I have my definition of what's attractive, but then on top of that, it's just a vibe. I can't like the only way I can describe it. It's just a vibe that I get. A little bit in how they walk. And I've heard comedians talk about this and laugh about this, but like some of them got a certain walk that I pick. I'm like, okay, that's part of it, but I think more of it is kind of intangible, just a vibe that I get. And I'm not talking about this, how women be like, he was confident. No, I'm not talking about that. It's just something that's not necessarily on the surface. I just pick it up. And just pick up a vibe. So
you got the sixth sense. You got the sixth sense.
I got it. For that anyway. For other things I don't. But for that I do.
Okay. All right.
So that served me well, but I did wonder did other men have that sixth sense. And I'm sure some do.
I'm sure they do, yeah.
I'm not the only one.
They know. It used to be I think one of the judges for me could be how well they dance, might be an indication, or their flexibility. Flexibility. I've seen a lot of women have had a lot of time during this lockdown, and they've been posting. Some women have been posting a lot of different pictures. Not that I'm looking for them, but I see them across my timeline sometimes, and they flexing. And I said, well, if you can do that with your legs, then okay, all right,
no doubt. That's interesting. We probably had to talk about that at length in the future again. But now I want to talk about what were you really looking for? So you didn't have the sixth sense that I had, right? But you had, what were you looking for in terms of making that decision to enter that act with this woman?
My chances. What are my chances of catching that body?
So you were running risk ratios.
Risk ratios.
Okay.
Now, I want to back up. I want to ask you a question.
Yes,
like, did it matter, or how much does it matter to you whether or not, and maybe you were going to get to this, but how much does it matter to you whether or not a woman has an orgasm?
It matters greatly.
And so do you base your performance? I know I sometimes base my performance on whether or not I can get her to have an orgasm.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I base my performance on that. I feel like with women, this is what I feel like about women. And I know you and I have a very high regard for women, especially Black women. That's clear, right?
Yeah.
I think the reason why I think they've been, I believe, successful is because I don't even assume that the orgasm is necessarily authentic, right? So, no, I don't. I mean, I believe that they were, but I'm never going to just be like, oh yeah, because I just feel like with women, you just don't know. Now, I think there's some physical indicators that you can be pretty sure, right? But I think what I always tried to approach it from a perspective of, I want to make sure she's satisfied first, and then I'll worry about myself. That's just how I've always been. And maybe that's because I started a little bit later and you were, when you first, you kind of unsure and all that. But then even as time went on and I was confident, it's like, I want to make sure she's good. And then I'll I'll get mine on the back end.
Mike Tyler says, who cares about her orgasm?
Wow. And you know what? I think a lot of women, that's their problem with us.
Yeah, right?
Like, I don't care.
And so to go back in the beginning, of the question, in the beginning of my time, I think I was just so selfish that I only cared about me. And if I got it, I got it. If I got the draws, I got the draws. And that's all I cared about. And I think I had to grow into kind of your perspective, understanding that sex is so much more than the number of times you can score. Like there's something else to it. And that's when I started understanding these soul ties. And so when I started understanding soul ties and this was in my 20s, like you lay with a person, you kind of carry that person with you. You don't, that's the soul tie.
Right.
And then as of late, learning how to break soul ties, but understanding like, sex has a lot more depth than what I initially understood when I first started having sex.
True indeed. And I feel like when you are concerned about the woman, you get more out of that from her because they sense when you care and when you don't. I think you'll get more out of it. But, again, I'm not judging, if you're out there, you're doing your thing, do it how you feel like you need to do it. But just for me, I feel like I've gotten way more by being concerned about that. Because then they flip it and they be like, I want to make sure you're good. And so like it's reciprocated, hopefully. But it's an interesting thing that they always try to say that younger men don't care about that, but I definitely did. But I do think that most younger people are worried about. Now let's talk about this. So I always wondered why like men that were older, it's still like they would still seem like they were still intrigued with the fact that they could get the sex. And I never understood that because it's like if you're 30 something years old and you're 40 and you've been out here doing your thing, like you can't, I just feel like, why are you still intrigued with just getting the sexual interaction? Like I would assume that if there's an attraction, you're going to have sex. You know, like, are people out here in their 40s still like, yeah, I mean, because I even told one of my homies that he was like running down all these women he was messing with. I'm looking at him like, but you should be. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are we talking about this? You're still infatuated with the idea that you got 4 or 5 women. I would imagine that anybody should be able to do that. Like, what is that infatuation? Is it still that numbers game from the past, or what?
I think it goes back to an early conversation that we had in probably episode 1 about maturity. It's age doesn't necessarily mean you're mature. And I think it was like another episode 2, when we were talking about how getting to and maybe it was episode 1, we were talking about the way of the superior man. And there's a level where you get to just appreciate the art.
Yeah.
And some of us just aren't there yet. It's just like, we're still in that first phase man, which is all natural stuff. It's just all innate.
Right.
Give me her. Just give me her. And as many women as I can have approves me, which is a maturity issue.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a maturity issue. So
yeah,
I mean, and ego. Look, ego still wants you to be like, you still got it.
But it seems like to me, your ego would be even more fulfilled if you were able to get the woman and please her and yourself and make something productive out of the situation. Like, to me, that feeds my ego more than just I got the situation.
All right, so let me swing this pendulum a little bit. And have you ever been in a relationship? Okay, no. I don't want to do that. I'll get myself in trouble. But one of the reasons I imagined being in a committed relationship, one of the reasons, and this is one of the reasons that relationships even built, was on this we're monogamous, right? And you commit that you won't sleep with anyone else, either one of us. If you're in a monogamous relationship, not an open, but if you're in a neither one of us will sleep with anyone else. Mm-hmm. But then you're in a relationship and you get into these periods of times where maybe you guys not even liking each other, but you're together, you're not willing to break up, but you're not having sex, but you desire to have sex. And then lo and behold, somebody slides in your DM, hey, how you doing? Hey, handsome, how you doing? And now you got this, your natural innate stuff happening that makes you, kind of feeds that ego piece. Have you ever experienced that? How do you handle yourself in those moments?
Yeah, I've experienced that. You know what? I think I'm just a different type of person. Like, it's cool to get attention and all of that, but I don't feel like that strokes my ego. I would be looking more at the level of woman who did that versus the fact that somebody just showed me some attention. You know what I mean? Like, if it's just oh, yo, what's up? You look, all right, cool. You know what I mean? It's whatever. But like, if it's a really solid, what I consider solid woman that I would normally deal with, and I'm having that little rough patch, it will be harder in that instance. But not just because anybody showed me some attention. Nah, I just never been like that. You know what I mean? But if it's somebody that's the stereotype, the archetype of who I typically deal with, yeah, it would be difficult in that moment. Like, man, let me just stay away from that situation or whatever, for sure.
So you're at a point where you can thwart off the temptations of other women.
I think I do a pretty good job, yeah. I think I do a pretty good job. I don't want to sit up here and act like I'm perfect and all of that, because I'm not. And I don't want to act like I'm better than some other dude. Definitely not. I'm just saying the way that I'm wired, it depends. The quality is more of a factor than the volume.
Yeah.
If 10 women try to holler at me tomorrow, it's not going to make me happy, sad, or anything like that. But it could be one. I am in a committed relationship right now. Let me throw that out there. But if one woman approaches me that's quality, that would have a bigger impact than 15 women try to talk to me. That's how I view it. That's how I feel.
We got our first piece of critical feedback.
Oh.
Mike Tyler says we are not doing proper justice to this piece.
Wow. Well, you know what, Mike? We need to have you on one day as a guest, I feel, so you can help us do it justice. But
he wants us to talk about child support.
Absolutely not. That's something we don't need to talk about.
He wants us to talk about family court and child support.
No, sir.
No, sir. I don't want to talk about it.
We're not talking about that at all. And I don't think that's a topic that
ain't our topic, bro.
Talk about.
Nah, that ain't our topic. That ain't our topic.
We're not gonna get that on Money Sex Gen X, brother, unfortunately. But
no.
Not gonna happen. But yeah, man. So let's get into this. So now that we've evolved, we talked about we've evolved our sexual views and all of that, and we definitely have some standards when we're thinking about who to be intimate with. I want to talk to you about what role do you feel like the women you've been with, what role did you feel like their parents played when you got to the full-blown, so now we're going from sex to full-blown relationships. What role did you feel, or if any, did the parents of that woman play in your relationship once it became super intimate?
Huge roles. Now that's my answer for now. Just like huge roles.
Positive or negative?
Both. It depends. I remember I was dating this one young lady in my late 20s, and she was super nice, and I was thinking like she could be the one. She could be the one. But her mother is like everything was centered around her and her mother. And it was like, no, I do not want that. I do not want that. Like everything we talk about your mama know, like everything, like nah. And so her mother is weighing in on conversations. Her mother's calling me about conversations that I had with her daughter. What? Nah.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I have parents who, girls whose parents let us be us. They stay out of it. But then even just better understanding how they were raised helps me understand who they are, at that time in the relationship.
I'm glad you said that. So do you find, this is one of those things I always want to talk about again, now let's talk about the father. Do you find that the relationship is different? And if you're out there, Money Sex Gen X podcast, let's talk about sex. We've been talking about sex the entire time. Now we're kind of transitioning to the aftermath of some sexual relationships where there is a deep commitment in an actual relationship. But the father, what role do you feel like the father has played? No, here's a better question. Do you notice a difference in the relationships that you've had with women when the father was in the picture while they were growing up versus when the father was not in the picture? Was there a difference?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be one of those comments when young ladies that I dated that didn't have their father in the picture, they never made the cut.
Okay.
They never made the cut. I only have had meaningful relationships with women who currently or had their father in the picture.
Okay.
But chicks who's like, I can't fill that role for you. And I mean, and if their father wasn't in their picture, I became the father figure, and that wasn't a role that I wanted to play. But I also was able to look at however the relationship was with their father was a great indication of the type of relationship I would have with them.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's been my experience too. If you're out there and you're a millennial or you're in a younger generation, please pay attention to this conversation because it's not judging anybody. We're just talking about our experiences. But for me as well, I definitely have noticed a difference in a relationship when the father was present versus when the father wasn't present. And the woman, obviously, they can't control whether the father was present or not, right? So not blaming them or doing anything like that. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, Money, Sex, Gen X, we designed this show, Scott and I, to talk about relevant issues, right? One, there's very relevant when thinking about family and being able to kind of think about what criteria am I supposed to use to determine what types of relationships that I want to have. Now, don't get it twisted. I've had relationships with women who didn't have the father in the home, and I had great relationships with them, right? And I've had relationships, I would say more so than not, though, when I've had relationships with women who had the father, it was an easier relationship, but it doesn't mean that the woman was any less because they didn't have the father. But we had some different challenges that we had to work through.
And let me clarify this point because I have two daughters who I am not in the home with, but I am absolutely in their lives. I mean, we have open lines of communication. So I want to be clear. We're talking about the difference between a woman having a relationship with her father, whether he's in her life or not. Like he can like in her life and then not having a relationship versus just having a relationship with your father.
Yeah, because
I want to make that distinction. Partially for me, but I know there was a woman that I once dated. Her father is alive and well. She does not talk to her father at all, and that played. It played in. It was a role that played in our. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Yeah, that we're talking about women that have relationships with their father versus women that do not have a relationship with their father.
That's a great point. And I've been with women who had a relationship with the father, but it wasn't a good one.
Right. Okay.
Just because they're in the house or they have a relationship doesn't, as we know, it doesn't mean it was good. It could be horrible.
Let me get to some of these comments. Craig has said, Mike Tyler says the mother has to subscribe to Black feminism. So this is the result. Please do the research. Craig says, seems that women that have had a good relationship with their father don't understand men as much as those that do. Craig also said, I've noticed that women who didn't have a father around tend to not respect men as much. And then Mike Tyler says, absence of the father is essential because the mother cannot do it on her own. I have learned this as a high school teacher. So we got a lot of great
feedback,
dialogue happening in the comment section.
Yeah, great feedback. Yeah, I think that's definitely an issue. I do think that the women who didn't have the father in the home, they have a harder time when you're in an intimate relationship, seeing you maybe as the leader of the home, for lack of a better word, right? Or the father figure. I think they struggle with that a little bit more because they haven't seen it. They haven't seen it as much or not directly in their home, but definitely an issue.
Let me transition. This is take a page out of your book. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. I want to move this conversation along a little bit. What do you look for? I'm taking a page out of your book. Mm-hmm. You asked this question about what do you look for in a life partner, wife, lady, etc. And what advice? This second part I'm really interested in. What advice would you give younger men trying to wife up?
Oh, it's good. It's a great transition. Part of it is what we just talked about. I would definitely pay attention to the family history. And not just, it's easy to be like, well, look at the woman's family. Look at your own family history also. What was the dynamic in your own household? What was your father? What was his relationship with his mother? Because I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to do the same things that your father did.
Damn.
And you know what, man? I'm glad you brought this up because the biggest mistake that I feel like people make, and this might be controversial, I don't care what anybody says, you are your parents. And please clap back in the comments if you don't agree. But at the end of the day, And I'm not a psychologist, with all none of that stuff, but I'm telling you, you're your parents. So if I have done exactly what my parents have done in all my romantic relationships, to the letter, to the T. And I think we start off at a deficit when you don't realize that, like, even if you don't, that's your foundation. So you got that influence in you already. Pay attention to it. So that would be my main advice. What's your family history, and what's the family history of the young lady that you're thinking about wifing up? Start there. The second piece of advice, and I know it looks like you want to say something, but go to counseling at the beginning of an intimate relationship. Please, whether it's at your church, psychologist, whatever, go to counseling up front if you're thinking about wifing somebody up, because there's a lot of issues that are going to come up that you wouldn't even conceive of. Seems like you wanted to say something.
Man, those are two very, very, very good suggestions, pieces of advice. You really hit me with that piece about your parents, because I'm thinking about how do you break generational curses. And I think you answered it with your second piece of advice of go to counseling early
and often.
Any suggestions for how to get someone to go to counseling if they don't want to go to counseling? Does that mean, hey, you ain't the one?
Yes, it does. You're not the one.
If I can't get you to go to counseling, you ain't the one.
Remember they used to say, drop them like a bad habit.
Drop them like a bad. And if you don't want to go to counseling, if you're the one that don't want to go to counseling,
then that person needs to leave you.
Damn.
That sounds cold, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds real. I'm here for counseling. I believe in counseling. Go to counseling. Get counseling. But I know there are a lot of people, one or the other in relationship is like, we good. We don't need that. What we need counseling for? Go to counseling.
Red flag off the top. Yeah, definitely get counseling. But I'm curious, so we've been talking, like, what advice would you give a young man in say he's 32, he found the one, he's thinking about wifing her up. What would your advice be?
Man, you got to have the hard conversations. You got to be with somebody. You have to be with somebody that you cannot be afraid to have a conversation with about anything. I'm a firm believer in this is, so I'm divorced, and I was married for a long time before getting a divorce. And so I think that was I just did that wrong. It had to be scrapped. It was wrong. If you are afraid to have a conversation with your partner, that's not the one.
Yeah.
Like, why would you what could you on earth be afraid to have a conversation with your partner about? Even if it's, and this is a hard one, even if it's for a guy who maybe is not a mature, like is attracted to another woman and feeling tempted, I wouldn't say necessarily go to your woman and be like, hey, I'm attracted to another woman, but you have to be mature enough in that conversation to say, we need to work on this part. I need, because I'm feeling like I'm falling short in this area, and I might make some mistakes down the road.
No doubt.
So talk about everything is the number one piece. And then the second one, I would say, like, I think it's very, very important to have a conversation about, and it's still part of talking. Talk about that money. Talk about y'all money. Talk about your money, and be on the same page financially. I think is important too.
Funny, the show is Money, Sex, Gen X. We haven't talked about money that much. We got to really dive into that on one of the next episodes. But yeah, I agree with that, man. Here's my third tip on my end. Definitely see what the interaction is between the young lady and your family.
Now, how do you, okay. Is your mom still with you today? Is your mom still alive?
Yes.
How is that? I mean, is your mom? That's tough, man. Like,
I've gotten married and my mom didn't even know there. I learned a big lesson of don't try to come to your parents talk about you're getting married before they've had a chance to fully interact with the woman. You don't do that. And I wondered, is that a cultural thing? I think that was just something I was doing. It's like, you don't do that. You let the woman meet your father, your mother, if they're around, your brother, your cousins, and see what that dynamic is. You don't just pop up talking about, yeah, I got married.
Well, what if your moms or your family ain't feeling the chick, but you 3 years in, you 4 years, but they ain't feeling her. Your mama
what?
she ain't the one, Eric.
On the front end and not feeling her?
Just on the front end, you feeling the y'all, you and your lady, y'all grooving, y'all straight, and then it's not until like a year and a half, 2 years in, and then you realize your family ain't feeling it. Then
I think that's tough, man. I mean, it's hard to prepare for that when it's like 2 years later. But I think if you can figure out on the front end that they're not feeling her or vice versa, even if you decide to continue on, at least you have that information.
It was always important to me if I felt any bit that I thought that I could possibly give you a chance.
Yeah.
You had to go meet my mom.
You were smart then.
Always.
You were smart. I wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't smart in that area at all. My mom has met some people, but in some crucial areas, it wasn't socialized enough. And I learned from that.
Well, we lie to ourselves, Eric. Even, I don't want to make it sound like I'm this super good guy, because there have been things that maybe my mom has pointed out that I've been like, you're crazy, you tripping, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. When
I probably should have more openly respected that perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the time I wasn't humble enough to respect it.
No doubt. Yeah, that comes with time.
Yeah. This is the Money Sex Gen X podcast.
Yes, it is. Yes. Episode 4.
Hey, let's talk about next week before we kind of close out. I know we're not about to close out quite yet. We have I think a couple of more things to talk about. But next, we are taking a break next week.
Yes, taking a little break.
We've done 4 episodes. We're going to recalibrate, try to bring you some even better content and some better aesthetics. We're going to try to improve our show.
Absolutely.
But we are taking 1 week off, and then we'll be back. What's that, like May 10th? I think that's Mother's Day.
Okay.
That's Mother's Day.
Yeah, interesting day. Yeah. We're going to take some time off. We want to try to bring on some guests and, continue to shake things up and keep it interesting. But we're going to take off a week. So, tune back in on the 10th. We'll have some more great content. And, if certain things we're not going to talk about, but, we definitely are open to suggestions and comments. We're not looking for you to be like, oh, this is a great show. Say whatever's on your heart. You know what I mean? And, we hope that we get positive feedback, but me and Sky and I are not sensitive like that. So say what you must, but we're going to continue to rock out and give you what we believe is the perspective of the Black Gen X male in society. And remember, we started doing this show because we don't feel like we're being reflected properly, if at all, in the media. I'm not a millennial. I'm not, any other group. I love them all, but I am a Gen X. I'm a Black male, and I want to hear content that I'm interested in. And that's why we decided to do this show.
That's right. Final thoughts about sex. Give us your final. I'm actually going to go first, and I'll let you close it out. My final thoughts about sex. Sex is a wonderful thing. I enjoy sex. I love sex. Sex is to be, at this stage in me as a Gen Xer, sex is to be mature, nurtured. Sex is to be treated with a level of maturity and appreciation and openness. It's a beautiful thing when both people are getting something out of the deal. It should not be this thing that you just disrespect and only go for self. It should be mutual and definitely enjoyable. If you can, I'm exploring, and I don't mind saying this, I'm exploring this tantric sex right now, like really, really getting into the depth of sex. Again, something that I know we don't talk about a lot, but if you're going to engage in sex, treat it with respect and enjoy it, and be sex positive. Be sex positive. Eric, your thoughts on sex, man?
I love that. I love that, man. Yeah, tantric sex. I gotta check into that. But yeah, I get my final thoughts are kind of the same things that you said. Is let's stop making sex be taboo. Let's continue to have these conversations with our children about it. It's a part of life. It was created so that we could procreate, but we've gotten to a point where we actually enjoy it as a pastime, if you will. In my 40s, I feel like I enjoy sex more than I ever have. I've always enjoyed it, but the feeling is like on a 3 times more than what it used to be. So that's great. Maybe that's just because of my experiences, but I thoroughly enjoy it. And I hope that everybody else out there is enjoying it. And let's keep having these conversations. This is the Money Sex Gen X episode 4. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all back. What'd you say, May 10th?
May 10th.
May 10th. This show is a wrap. Peace. Sex, love, and money.